Members, I believe we do have a quorum. I wanted to call to order the April 24th MDX Board of Directors meeting. I'm going to have Mr. Martinez lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Fernandez Guzman, Mr. Ferre, Ms. Gutierrez, Mr. Evia, Mr. Holland, Mr. Maloof, Mr. Martinez,
Here.
Mr. Pago, Mr. Sanabria, Ms. Solar McKinley,
Here.
Mr. Wortman,
Here.
Vice Chair Fano, Chair Lasarte.
Here.
We have Mr. Holland and Mr. Maloof on the line.
They're both on the line?
Yes.
Great. Madam Attorney, if we could have the declaration of voting conflicts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If members would check your packets for any voting conflicts that any of you may have in relation to the action items on today's agenda. If there are any conflicts, please note it for the record.
Are there any conflicts? Any conflicts on the phone?
No.
None
No.
shown. Thank you.
Perfect. Are there any citizens' comments, Mr.
No, Mr.
Director?
Chairman, no request for citizen comments. We do have a presentation.
Correct. Before we do the presentation, now that we have all our board members, at least those that are physically present here, I wanted to recognize Maria Luisa, who is walking towards us now. Because tomorrow is, I believe, National Assistant Secretary Day, whatever politically correct word I'm missing right now. Administrator, Maria Luisa, you know, she sends me a million emails, coordinates a lot of stuff for us. I know the board really loves working with you. We have a card, I believe
That I
that's
think
here,
it's going around being
that
signed.
Miss McKinley is going to sign right now.
I'm like, where's the card? Where's the card?
I bought you these beautiful flowers. No, now here you go. That's for you. I know that we have Mr. Johnson and Bill Johnson from Port Miami here. He is going to have a presentation. I know that he doesn't need an introduction. I know most of us know him, but I can tell you from working with him, Bill is one of the hardest working guys that I know at the county, and he is really a partner for this community. I mean, I don't think there's an agency at the county that does more to bring jobs to this area, create jobs, and promote this area throughout the world than Port Miami. And Bill Johnson's a real partner and an asset, and because of his leadership, you probably have two of the largest infrastructure projects ongoing right now, the Port Tunnel, and the other one is a deep dredge, and that doesn't happen without leadership. Bill, go ahead. Make your presentation, sir.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a privilege to be with you before you this afternoon. Following on those comments, it really takes an incredible amount of teamwork, and the MDX is certainly a very, very important part, not just of as a partner of ours at the Port Miami, but in so many things, positive things that are occurring in this community. I will tell you that I hold this body and the MDX, its mission, its work, in extreme high regard. I say it every day when I ride on the incredible road system and the vision that you all not only have laid out, but continue to lay out, working with a multitude of stakeholders from Jose Abreu at our airport and on and on and on. So I commend you. I'm hoping that the presentation my team from the port is going to make this afternoon, the brief presentation on our master plan, is really the opening discussion, the opening dialogue for what I'd like to see in the future is a stronger relationship between our Port Miami, and the MDX. I think there's some unique opportunities, and you know, no one knows but the future what those kinds of opportunities will be. But I do believe there are real potential opportunities for greater collaboration between this body, our port, similar to some of the great things that you've done in collaboration with the FDOT and Miami International. So I look forward to that. I commend you. Your executive director is a good friend and does a superb job. And Javi, you know, again, I continue to follow your great work here. And as a community, we're very, very blessed to have you in your leadership role. Most important thing I'll tell you is that you're going to watch a 6-minute video, and then I have my planners here to talk about our master plan. It really is, and I tell this to every group. I presented a few weeks ago to the DDA, the Downtown Development Authority, and whether it's the Beacon Council, the Chamber, no matter what organization we present before, it's the same comment. This is a starting conversation. The things you're going to see are not cast in stone, and you know there's some great renderings that Louis Ahemel, did the plan. They worked 2 years, very hard to lay out. What I truthfully, I mean, it sounds like I'm boasting, but what I think is probably one of the best port master plans anywhere in the United States. And probably, I think globally for that matter. I am very, very proud of the work that my team, working with Louis and his team over at B&A, what they did to produce, I think, is a starting conversation of where we as a community can take our port. And just to wrap it up, some good news. We had incredible support this past legislative session. I mean, incredible support from our legislature, starting here with our own delegation and led by the chair of our delegation, Representative Lopez-Quintero, who's done an incredible job for us. The good news about to be announced, I think late tonight when Mayor Jimenez arrives back from Haiti, or possibly tomorrow, so maybe I'm jumping the gun, but we have reached a settlement with the environmentalist. I think that Representative Lopez-Quintero's bill that passed the legislature had something to do with that, an important thing. So, but that bill, some may criticize that legislation, but that really is the right thing for not just this port, but for all of our ports in the state. And I assure you, as members of this body, that the environmental project, the dredge at our port, meets the highest standard of any dredge ever in American history. The highest. And so we're proud. We've reached a settlement. It goes to the County Commission next Tuesday on an emergency basis, May 1st. So the legislation, which I think is now a law, that Representative Lopez-Quintero had the wisdom to pass on our behalf to support our port, is not going to be necessary in this particular instance, but we're appreciative for his leadership and his effort making that happen. So again, we're moving forward. I just returned last week from being in Panama for 2 days, partaking in a big conference down there in a speech. And I can tell you that the way it stands, I think that we here in Miami will be at 50 feet, at least on the same schedule with the Panama Canal, if not sooner. That's exciting. And our partners at Florida East Coast FEC Rail, by late summer, early fall, will introduce on-port rail, will be reintroduced onto the Port of Miami come this late summer, early fall. And of course, our great partners at the state FDOT are on schedule for the completion of our tunnel just about 2 years from now. It will open in mid-May of 2014, on budget, on target to open. So we're excited. We've got a spend down of about $100 million a year of federal, most importantly state, port, and private money. We love public-private partnerships. A lot going on. But what you're going to see in this master plan is really sort of to entice you in terms of what those opportunities are with other organizations, such as an MDX, and also, of course, most importantly, with private industry, with private partners. What you're going to see would represent probably an additional $1 billion to $1.5 billion of private development done in concert with what? Our communities that surround us, City of Miami and every community in this town. So we want to do things that are intelligent for our port, that are maritime driven, maritime related, that are tied, if you will, on a need for, based on where the economy is. We don't see ourselves as a competing interest to downtown stakeholders, but we do see ourselves as an equal partner. And I think that's the exciting news. So it's a conversation. Can we roll the video? This is Felix Pereira, my chief planner.
It's been the heart and soul of Miami before Miami was even a place. It's been here from the earliest settlers along the banks of the Miami River and adjacent to what is now Biscayne Boulevard, to Dodge and even Loomis Islands, which were created from the bottom of Biscayne Bay as it evolved. It's been here as a source of trade and commerce, for transportation, for leisure travel, connecting Miami to the rest of the world. Today, it is Port Miami, the world's busiest cruise port and a growing cargo hub linking the Americas and beyond. And now, Master Plan 2035, the blueprint that will take Port Miami to a new level, building on its past success to become an even more powerful player on a global scale. Port Miami, a port of the future, is poised to emerge as one of the most competitive ports on the East Coast, supporting thousands of jobs that contribute so mightily to South Florida's economy, maintaining a balance that has kept tourism, transportation, trade, and commerce its focus for more than a century. The port, along with its federal, state, and private sector partners, is investing heavily in infrastructure improvements to ensure future competitiveness. That will allow Miami to grow as an international logistics center. A cornerstone of this strategy is the deepening of its channels to accommodate the new generation of supersized cargo ships. The master plan calls for a new intermodal strategy. In partnership with Florida East Coast Railway, on-port rail freight is being restored with links to the national railway system. Cargo will now flow to the rest of the nation with ease and efficiency. Port Miami will become the port of entry to move goods, and importantly, at very competitive rates. Port Miami also moves people. More than 4 million cruise passengers each year. No surprise that modern-day cruising was invented at Port Miami a half a century ago. Today, as the cruise capital of the world, millions of pleasure seekers each year pass through the port's terminals on their way to vacations in the Caribbean, Bahamas, Mexico, and beyond. But as the industry continues to evolve, port facilities must grow and adapt. Ships are getting bigger. Cruise lines are expanding, striving to deliver a diverse product for every budget and taste. To remain an industry leader, the port must have modern and technologically advanced facilities. It must be convenient and customer-friendly. On the drawing board, a new mega complex that will revolutionize cruise terminal design and usage. Industry forecasts are for continued growth, and the new super terminal incorporates innovations that will keep even larger number of passengers moving from dockside to shipside with greater ease and efficiency. The port is self-supporting, and it will continue to rely on its own revenues to pay for operations and future improvements. In an ever-changing and fiercely competitive marketplace, port officials must look to new and diversified revenue sources. Just like any other business, reinvestment is key to remaining competitive and growing the customer base. The source of this funding lies right here, in the port's unbeatable location, adjacent to a vibrant downtown Miami. The now underutilized southwest corner offers many opportunities for future marine-related activities that complement South Florida's urban core. While specific usages are yet to be determined, there are many possibilities. The goal is to integrate the port more fully into the world-class city that surrounds it. New development will be targeted and tied to the maritime industry, all helping the port take full advantage of its location, and at the same time providing much-needed monies to be reinvested in port improvements. As a good neighbor, the port recognizes the important role it plays in the community, specifically transportation-related. The new port tunnel, now under construction, will not only improve access to the port, but will help alleviate downtown traffic congestion. Introducing Miami's Port Central, as envisioned by the master plan. It includes an intermodal center for taxis, buses, rental cars, and other transportation modes, along with possible mass transit links in the future. Siemens Park, a centrally located service center for crews and visitors, will be redesigned and expanded as a centerpiece of the new port landscape. Key to the master planning process, recognition of the port's role as responsible steward of Biscayne Bay and all the surrounding environment. Protecting natural resources for future generations is a major component in how the port will grow. The master plan calls for keeping future development within the port's current footprint, doing more in the same space. To reach true sustainability, safeguards will be put into place. Monitoring and reducing the impact on air and water quality, marine life, and energy resources are key. Port Miami is indeed a port of the future, expanding to maximize its current assets and strengthening its position for future growth, but always environmentally sensitive. Master Plan 2035 is an ambitious plan, an investment for a financially stable port, one that will remain a powerful economic engine and continue creating new, well-paying jobs and wealth in the community. Welcome to Port Miami. Welcome to the Port of the Future.
Felix is going to walk you through a PowerPoint with your permission, of course. That's about 7, 8, 9 slides. My closing comments to you, of course, I'm
Not this Felix, that other Felix. Yeah.
This Felix. Yeah, this Felix.
Yeah.
You probably know it as well. So, of course, we're happy to entertain questions at the end. A couple closing comments. The port is doing very, very well. During the last several years, during the downturn in the global U.S. economy, your port has been one of the top producing container ports in America. We are one of the fastest growing. We are 54% of our trade is to the south. We are the dominant port in America into the Caribbean and into the Americas. And that's not by chance. We work that really, really, really hard. In the last 2 weeks, I've been down in Guatemala. I've been down in Panama. I'll be literally flying out for a 24-hour meeting just with the president of DR, Dominican Republic, on Friday with our partners at Seaboard Marine. So we are aggressively out there, as are other ports. I can tell you, when I was in Guatemala, the port director from Hampton Roads up in Virginia, Norfolk, was there, and he was explaining to our friends down in that part of the central part of the Americas that they have their eyes set on taking business and growing their business between Virginia and Peru and Chile and Guatemala. That's our territory, and we will continue to protect our important niche. Houston has not been shy. They've made no mistake and let it be known that they want to take Miami's title. We are the cargo gateway of the Americas, and Houston has been saying for the last 2 years they intend to take that title from us, and we're not going to allow that to happen. So again, the business is strong. One of the reasons why your port has done well during the downturn has been because of the strength of the economies in Chile, in Peru, in Colombia, in Brazil. And because Europe has weathered and had a lot of difficulties, even Asia, Latin America has been fairly strong, and we've benefited from that. We also are a very strong port. 52% of our business is exports. There's every reason in the world why President Obama should love our port, because we export. We're probably one of 3 or 4 ports in America that actually exports more than it imports. So there's a lot going on. We are very proud of the fact that our port is very, very open. We have an open door. We work with everyone to allow everyone to have the right to be heard and to work through issues. So again, with that, I'm going to stop. Felix is going to take over. But we look forward to any questions that you might have into future potential partnership with you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to personally thank Mr. Johnson for his vision and his legacy that he's leaving with this master plan to the community and to the county. I would also like to thank the chair and the members of the MDX board for this opportunity for this brief presentation. as you saw in the 6-minute video, it basically gives us a 50,000-foot level view of where we are with the master plan. The port itself was basically born in 1896, roughly, when Flagler developed his railroad and hotel, and the port was just a natural offspring of it. Over the years, the port developed and became from 3 spoiled islands into 1 main island. As you can see in the slides, it became basically 520 acres over the last 100 years. So the port has been a good steward of the environment of the bay, of the county, and has developed, as we've been told, the 2nd largest economic engine for the county. Just a couple of more slides showing the latest lineup of cruise ships that we've had. The mega drivers of the master plan. The context, obviously, the environment sensitivity is a major issue. In the middle, we are in the middle of a CDB creating problems and opportunities. We have cargo. We are the furthest land transportation port from any major U.S. market. We are a natural hinterland for the cargo, which determines its future. The cruise side, the port has a natural glass ceiling due to industry consolidations. In other words, only so many ships are built per year, per season, and there are only so many markets. So we have a natural glass ceiling. Until we can hit that ceiling, we need to expand.
And one point on that, I'm here to check. There are 4 new ships coming to America this year, 2012. 4 new builds. 3 of them will home port in Miami. A Celebrity, it's called the Reflection, the Carnival's largest ship ever, the Breeze, and Oceania's newest ship, the Riviera. 3 brand new out of 4 coming to us. We also have 3 brand new cruise lines coming, including Disney, MSC, relocating here from Port Everglades, and Regent, the luxury brand, also relocating here from Port Everglades. We also just announced last week we're bringing in 2014 the largest ship ever to come to Miami, which is the brand new ship being built, comes online in the spring of 14 from the Norwegian Cruise Line. So we're very excited about that. We'll be having another announcement within the next 10 days of another new build coming to Miami. So we're aggressively working not only cargo, we're aggressively working the cruise side of it as well. We should hit 5 million cruise passengers by the end of the decade. No port in the world has ever topped 4. We've topped 4 million for the last 4 consecutive years as we continue to reign supreme in numbers, but we want to reign supreme in service. In terms, that's the most important, service.
Thank you, Bill. In this slide here, you can see from 1995 to 2009, the passenger growth worldwide in Asia, Europe, and North America. And as you can see, North America has been predominant. Obviously, the Port of Miami is one of the major, if not the major player in those numbers. Cruise vessel deliveries, as Bill just mentioned, we have a major lineup coming up in the near future, in the next year to 2 years. Our passenger growth in the master plan, we took a conservative number of approximately 2% growth till 2035. And as you can see, we're projecting to hit just slightly above 6 million passengers per year. Cruise findings. In the analysis, we found out that we would need approximately a total of 9 berths. We have currently 6 right now. We will need a 7th berth immediately. Which we are in the process of looking at right as we're speaking. The 8th berth in 2017, and by 2035, the 9th berth. All ships above 900 linear feet will go on the North Channel. All ships below that will go on to the South Channel Terminal J, which was redone as a high-end boutique cruise terminal. This is a slide of the existing port. And all the surroundings, the South Channel, which will be dredged to 50 feet, North Channel for cruise operations, and the 520 acres. As you can see, over the last 40 to 50 years, the cruise ships have gotten larger and longer. The first line that you see in the orange were the original 60s, 70s ships of about 700 linear feet. The orange in the 80s were about 800. Between 900 linear feet in the early 2000s, and by 2010, we were looking at the Oasis class ship, just shy of 1,200 linear feet. In the master plan, we looked at optimizing the berths. And again, as you can see, we came up with a total of 9 for the final optimization of the cruise side. This would mean that we would have to do some cutting and filling on the north side, potentially to accommodate these expansion of these future ships and future cruise terminals. The future terminal itself, we looked at various options. In the 6-minute video, we showed the mega terminal, which could basically handle 4 Oasis-class ships, basically 20,000 passengers debarking and embarking simultaneously, with the consolidated baggage, security, customs, and immigrations all under one facility, dropping the cost of passenger throughput for the operators. These are 2 examples of mega terminals being built right now in Singapore and Hong Kong. On the cargo side, we've got 3 premises. Basically, cargo moves with a nodal cost system, in other words, from point to point. 2, the lowest cost of water delivery by having a competitive advantage due to the harbor deepening. Go down to 50 feet, we get larger ships, more containers, more throughput, lower cost. Item 3, the lower cost of land delivery through rail improvements. The port was the recipient of a $23 million Tiger Grant application approximately a year and a half ago, which will help us reactivate the existing rail on port, the creation of a new on-port rail yard, and the port lead at 4.4 miles back out west to the airport.
That piece is extremely important. 50 feet of water is fundamental. That's going to allow us to double the amount of containers by the end of the decade. We should be roughly at the 2 million mark, TEU. By the end of 2030, we should literally be right at the 3 million mark, growing. You're moving from 11th position in America to probably somewhere in the top 5 or 6. You'll go from 18 billion a year economic impact to the community. By 2020, we should be 32 to 36 billion impact to the local economy. And again, the 50 feet makes that happen. But logistically, it won't work because all you do is jam up I-95. You can't move that kind of volume by road. So the key on this, and this is what's going to make your port stand out, is the ability to hit the heartland of America. Starting in soon, literally, we're talking by the end of this year, you'll be able to, with FEC, move containers double stacked. That's too high. Off of the port, off of some of the largest container ships in the world, offload it with some of the biggest gantry cranes in the world that we've ordered, literally right on port, onto rail, up to Jacksonville, double stacked, and through onto Norfolk Southern, CSX. From the Port Miami, we hit over 70%, I emphasize, over 70% of the entire American population of 310 million people in 4 days or less. The win for Miami, the win for the logistics community in this town, and this is why we exist as a port, to support the hundreds, literally 180,000 people have a job this year because of your port. 40,000 of them work in Broward, the rest here in Miami-Dade County. It is the ability to create these high-paying jobs. And we're going to be able to move that product for Target and Home Depot and Lowe's into Cleveland, Chicago, Memphis in less time, at less cost, than if you continue moving by water all the way north. This is how we win. And this isn't coming from me, your port director. This is coming from the shipping lines. And over the next couple of weeks, I literally am headed to Europe. I'll be with the owners of the 2nd largest shipping line in the world, MSC. I'll be with the owners of the 3rd largest shipping line in the world, CMA. We're dealing with some of the largest shipping lines in the world, plus some of the small ones. We like them all. And this is the win, rail, connection, directly to the heartland of America. This is how we're selling our community, selling our port. Felix?
These are the slides showing the reconnection of the rail. On the cargo side, we're optimizing our cargo yard. Basically have 3 operators right now. This slide just shows one large area giving us the opportunity, the flexibility of moving lines as we need to. Also showing the 3 positions for the new Super Post-Panamax vessels once the dredge at 50 feet happens on the south side. Financial challenges. The port does not receive any financial support other than grants, credits, enhancements, and loans. The Port of Miami is a new port. 100% of the facilities have been built since the 1960s. 100% of the Port of Miami's reclaimed lands, all 520 acres. A new mechanism is needed for the port to financially become sustainable, diversification of income, in other words. The port has been looking, as you saw in the video, of the southwest corner to become the third leg of our stool to bring in additional income through a new development on the south side. Sure. If you have any questions, please ask.
We have an opportunity, we believe, and so does people like Louis Ahmel and other planners, that our port, and those are some of the best ports in America today, San Diego. San Diego on port has 2 hotels, a Marriott and a Hilton. Again, we don't want necessarily, we, the port, don't want to get into the hotel business. We want private developers to get into the hotel business on our real estate, just like Jose Baru's been looking at here at MIA. San Francisco, Seattle, these ports have all done an excellent job of integrating their ports into the surrounding community and diversifying the revenue. So that's what we're looking at. We believe you look between Bayside, downtown, Bayside, and the southwest corner. Developers who've looked at it tell us we have probably some of the most expensive, most valuable real estate in the entire state of Florida on that 34 acres surrounding the Royal Caribbean office buildings, which the port, you and I, we're the port, we own it. And so what we're looking at is a bay walk. I want to reactivate the old port bridge, have it go directly from Bayside over to the port, have a bay walk on the port. We are ranked as the top most secure port in the state out of 15 ports. We're a leader in America in safety and security. Our port is easily accessible, even though it's still ranked top in security. There's no reason why you can't come over to the port. We don't want to be a mall. We don't want to compete with a shopping center. We want to be, and I'm told the planners are telling me while there's 6,000 people working on the port today, it is realistic to expect by 2025 you'll have between 25 to 35,000 people working daily on Port Miami, going through that 4-lane tunnel and across that 6-lane bridge. We're constantly being inundated from McDonald's and Subway. Okay? My first vote is for La Coretta, Cuban food on my port because I love Cuban food. But I had La Coretta yesterday. So anyways, that's my, right? No, that was actually Versailles yesterday. That's my push. But anyways, the point is, this is a conversation. We don't want developers being scared off. We want developers being enticed because we want private money, private developers to do this $1.5 billion worth of work for us. Okay? This is my philosophy, and I work for Mayor Jimenez. We don't want to be the hotel developer. We want a developer or developers. Okay? So that's the beauty of it.
As Bill stated, we could possibly have 20 to 30,000 employees out at the port. One of the options, workers. As was stated earlier in the video, there's a potential of development of the MIC modal or the port modal version of the airport MIC. Will be located just north of Port Boulevard with the development of additional parking, elevated green space, and the potential of connecting some kind of a rail system to the port itself. The MPO is currently, right now as I'm speaking, embarking on the potential study of bringing in some type of passenger light rail transit system to the port. They will be selecting a final A&E firm by the end of May to start a 1-year process of the study. So as Bill stated earlier, the port wants to integrate itself completely and holistically to the port down into downtown, the central core of downtown Miami with Bayside, the waterfront walkway, and the community as a whole. Sustainability goals, as was mentioned earlier, we're a clean port. Everything is containerized. We are looking at potentially becoming 100% compliant with EPA. We've upgraded all of our cranes, existing cranes and future cranes, to electrical power. We're looking at future shore power to ships to minimize CO2 emissions, etc. And again, the port itself, we're confined within our restraints of our built environment, 520 acres and the surrounding waterways.
you grow vertical. Just like the leading ports in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Singapore, you grow up. And that's what we're doing right now. For the last 5 years, working with our state legislature, we have garnered and received tens of millions of state dollars from our legislature, and we have literally been digging up the original subsoil on Dodge and Loomis, strengthening it so we can go 5, 6 container high, fully full, instead of just empties. So you got to have 2 million, and the key change here, this is a change of philosophy. The prior port administration wanted to serve as a warehouse. I don't want to be a warehouse. I want the warehouse to be on private property out in Medley or Hialeah or Doral. I want to throw the containers through the port, get them off the port so we can get more containers moving through. That's your volume. So it's a change of mindset. And so that's where we're really going. We want to be a conduit. And this is the real radical change I've never seen until now. Over the last 2 years with this Florida legislature and this governor, the philosophy is just so seriously pro understanding of what it takes in business. And they connect the importance of connecting an airport and a seaport with roads, just like what you all do. You all live and breathe this. You understand this. A lot of politicians don't. And we're fortunate today in Tallahassee, I can attest to it after 32 years, we've got a legislature and leaders up there and a governor who understands that you need to connect with good roads and good rail. That's the beauty of it. I've never seen that before. So, Felix, you want to wrap up?
This final comments on the master plan. The cargo itself, with everything that's being put in today, it will cost estimated to cost about $2 billion in total CIP. The cargo itself will potentially triple from a little under 1 million TEUs to potentially 2.5 to 3 million TEUs by 2035. We are estimated to have 24 Superpost Panamax cranes, and I will not bore you with any more of the details. I again thank you very much for the opportunity of this presentation, and again thank you, Bill, for your leadership and everything that you've done for us.
Great. Any questions?
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Sanabria.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, as always, you put on a great show, and the veracity of what you have accomplished for the port, it's commendable. And thanks for being a leader in the community. I appreciate that. I have a couple questions. Is it fair to assume that the FEC Railroad, when they come in and start taking out the containers, that transportation mode is basically to points of north like Jacksonville and the southeast of the country? Because what I'm thinking is you still have your truck freight coming out of the port, right? So that would be more of a regional. I mean, how does a truck freight blend with the rail freight?
All right, this is my opinion. And FEC, they're great partners, so we may have a different twist on how we look at it. If you were to talk to my partners at FEC, and Jose knows this better than I do, they would tell you that 100% of my business could move by rail. I don't think so. I'm moving today, probably 12% of my business moves by rail. That's low. Ideally, at least 20, 25% of my business should move by rail. I believe, and I got Kevin Linsky, one of my assistant directors here, and he works these issues continually on the business side of it with FEC and my other partners. I think realistically, what you're going to see, there's 2 tranches, and this is the growth. The first growth is going to be within the state of Florida. The Miami-Orlando market is the second largest concentration of population on the East Coast of the United States. Outside of Manhattan, New York, the largest concentration of population is right here, Miami to Orlando. That's important because that's a large population base. Second, it's a wealthy base. It's in the top 4 in terms of actual wealth. So you got a wealthy, consumer base that consumes. And not only do you have 19 million Floridians, and we're growing, we're the second fastest growing state. We're soon to overtake New York and become the 3rd most populated state. But you had 86 million visitors to the state last year. So you've got a huge consumption. What we need to do here with our port system, Everglades, Tampa, Jacksonville, Miami, we need to be able to, serve our existing 19 million Floridians and those 86 million visitors who come. You'd be shocked if I tell you, and Kevin, correct me, 40% of what we, right here, 40% of what we consume, you and I, comes to us either from the port of Savannah, where there's no economic value to Florida whatsoever. 40%, or of the port of LA, Long Beach. Correct, Kevin? Is it 40? If it's an East Asian product, which means China, it's more like over 65%, correct? 65%. What I'm talking about is a loss of billions and billions and billions of dollars of wealth in this state. It's the first conversation I had with Rick Scott even before he was sworn in. It's the same conversation I've had with the leadership of our delegation who understood it. I was horrified. And again, I always say it, I'm not a port guy, I'm a troubleshooter. So when I was tasked to go to this bankrupt port in 2006, losing $1 million a month, okay, and had lost 18% of its container business in June of 06 in a very robust global economy, I said, you know, what the heck has gone wrong? What had gone wrong in Miami and in the rest of the state, we were asleep. Charleston was asleep. Savannah was fully awake. Savannah devoured us over the last 15 years. Devoured us. Now, we can recapture. So the answer to your question is we're going to recapture that business, and most of that, in my opinion, between here and Orlando, will be truck, my opinion. That's the first tranche. That's a lot of business. That's billions and billions of wealth, okay, recapturing our business. The second tranche, this is the huge one. This is rail. This is where we win. This is how we get into the heartland of America. We use FEC to connect seamlessly to Norfolk Southern, CSX. We get you to Memphis and Nashville, to Cleveland, to Chicago, faster, at less cost. Rail overall represents a 25% cost reduction over truck. Let's be honest. Rail is at least 25% overall less costly. The big ships, that's why the shipping lines love these. That's why Costco and Target and Home Depot, Lowe's love it. Those big ships, minimum 25% cost reduction moving by water on a big ship. Instead of 4,000 TEUs coming to Miami, we'll get 7, 9, 10, 12,000 TEUs coming to Miami on one ship. Greater scale, greater efficiency, with greater volume. I'm making a secret of it. I'm going to be like Walmart. Greater volume, I can discount, and I'm going to go competitive to ports outside the U.S. The lost secret, this is what I'm trying to get Washington to understand right now. This is a customs issue. After 9/11, this state lost billions and billions of container business to Freeport, the ports outside the U.S. We're about to lose it to Port Mariel. Got me greatly concerned. What's happened is, before 9/11, 23% of this port's business annually was transshipment. Today, it's less than 1%. Where did that billions of dollars annually go? Ports outside the U.S. This is a Washington issue. This is the issue I'm working with, with David Rivera, and I'm working this issue with Mario and Frederica Wilson and Ileana Ros-Lehtinen and all the others, and our senators. We have to what? We have to restructure how we're doing business in Washington to be able to recapture that lost business. That lost business is called transshipment. It's a different issue, but we're working on that. We can certainly spend $2 billion and have a nice modern port, but if you ain't got those boxes moving through it, you ain't got nothing. So I'm focusing on maintaining the momentum on the infrastructure, because I'm an infrastructure guy, but I'm on a road somewhere on the road every single week, shaking hands, closing deals, making sure that we're keeping what? Momentum, moving the boxes. I'm doing that in partnership with my friends at FEC. The real question, the real thing I want to get into through Atlanta, into Cleveland, where I was born, the suburbs of Cleveland, into Chicago, because that's where there's billions of dollars of wealth for this community, with freight forwarders and shippers and handlers and everybody else.
Yeah.
Room for both. Trucks won't go away.
The second part of that, the second part of my question, I still remember it. It was you have nighttime freight operations going out of the port in terms of truck traffic, or not yet? And why not? And when will you have it?
I would like it. Very few ports in America do. It's a cost issue. You have some activity on the West Coast because of the volume out in Long Beach, LA. I would like to have it. It's first of all an issue with customs. They have certain working hours established by customs, and that's why the relationship with Washington is extremely important in my business for cargo and cruise. We're basically, truthfully, a Monday to Friday. There's been great, and again, not to criticize my own community, but there's been great resistance in West Dade on the part of the traditional owner of our warehouses, that they want to work, a 7 to 4 or 7 to 5. They don't want to work, an 18, 24-hour day. You cannot be successful in the port business. You cannot be successful, even if the port has the infrastructure. Even if we have the 50 feet of water, we have rail, unless we have the complement off port, which is warehousing. Savannah succeeded because Savannah was very successful in attracting the Walmarts and the Kmarts and everyone else, but they were able to get private developers to build millions and millions of square feet. What is sexy today isn't 50,000 square feet of warehousing. What's needed today is somebody building 250,000, 500,000, okay, minimum of space. Now, no one's going to do that on the spec, unlikely, but what you have to do, this is the whole trick. For us in this state, and Governor Scott understands this, and so do our key legislators in Tallahassee, there needs to be, I believe, public money that serves as an incentive, okay, to private developers, okay, to help them get through the regulatory process, to start building some of this warehousing. But you've got to have roads that connect to those warehouses. You've got to have, and again, and I always tell people this, let me tell you something, my first priority is my own town. I'm from Miami. Some say you can't build in Miami, and you guys know this better than I do. It's too expensive to build in Miami, cost per square foot for construction. I think you can do it. It's obviously more expensive than if you're building, out in some rural location. But I think there's also strategic advantages for warehousing in my community. We have to have it, not just here in Miami and South Florida, but statewide. It's inevitable. So I happen to believe I'm very bullish on South Florida. I'm incredibly bullish on Florida. I am convinced, I'm absolutely convinced within 5 years we can move from 4th position in America to #1 in America in terms of trade, international trade. We're 4th in the country. I believe we can go to #1. And that's our objective, that's our goal. And as we do that, the state will benefit. We're talking untold billions. Again, I'm looking, deep dredge in Miami alone represents 30,000 new jobs on top of 180,000. And an average job through this port, and you all do some of these businesses, the average job through the Port of Miami this year with a high school degree is right at $56,000 a year. We're the highest segment of the economy in terms of a segment of industries in terms of high pay. So there's every reason why we need to make sure that, when I'm retired, when Jose Abreu is retired, that we have ethical, hard-hitting people running these airports and the seaport who have a backbone. Because if you ain't got a backbone and you cater to the whim, okay, of the party in favor, okay, then you're not serving this public. And let me tell you, I say it openly, 32 years, this has not been an easy job, but I love this job. So thank you for the compliment, but, I love what I do, okay? I think I have the best job in town.
No, I do.
Yeah,
No, I do.
yeah, and you do a good job at it. Okay, are there other questions? I've taken up all your afternoon.
Other questions? Questions, Mr. Wortman?
About 3 things. Number 1, question. Is there any direct bus routes into the Port of Miami?
Any what?
Bus, Miami-Dade Transit.
Oh, that's a great question. I have a meeting on that tomorrow, don't I? Yes. I'm not going to get into the details of that. We are a public entity.
Right.
And we do have 6,000 employees working on the port every day. Not my employees. I only have 278. I'm frugal. But there are private sector jobs. So we need a robust public transportation system onto that port. Mm-hmm. I'm going to leave it at that. I got a meeting with the transit director tomorrow.
There's none. The answer's none.
I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you. No,
Okay, so yeah,
because
obviously you need, and what I'm hopeful, it's taken a while, but the MPO is just starting about what we need to do. And and Javier and I talked about this. I don't want, they were going to start off and they say, okay, we want to bring this type of public transit, to the port. Why would you describe what you want until you study it? Mm-hmm. Take the blinders off, do a real analysis, and say what's the most effective. I don't know. It could be trolleys. I don't know. It could be people mover. I'm not limited. All I know is that what do I see by 2018? Public mass transit coming to my port. Mm-hmm. Okay? I'll be long retired, but I see that. I hope that's true.
Okay. Thank you. The reason I asked because I know how long it takes to get the trains and the others built there, the long term, but in the meantime, we have many options as you described, and hopefully we can move forward with some of them.
It's an absolutely good point. I mean, I agree with you absolutely. It should be easy to get from Miami International. Think about this. You got 4 million. We're soon to hit 4.5 million cruise passengers. You'd think it'd be easy to get from this airport to that port. Hello, we're both, what, sister agencies? Okay? I'm pushing it. I'm a big mouth, you can tell.
And the airport does have its own bus fleet. But, and also the cruise lines, they know that. That's why they have to have theirs with the parking lots there. But for the average person coming and going, it would be a godsend, especially with the amount of increase in the employment there, let alone the people coming to and from the port that are not employed there, that multiply that many times over. Okay.
Amen.
The next thing is that, well, like MDX, we have our own highways that link to and from, and there are certain choke points with our partners with FDOT, with 836 and I-95, plus going out to West Dade, Medley, Hialeah, Doral, as you mentioned earlier, and then just connecting to the intrastate system, getting out of where it's all choked up here to that, and what we can do here on our existing roads, plus the new ones that, in the visioning thing from, like I said, the 112 extension west possibly to the US 27 Okeechobee as upgrading to an expressway, to the state planning, about 5 new major ones with the Turnpike, the Heartland one, north-south and east-west, because it all has to work together. Transportation, everything's part of a chain. Miss a link in the chain, it doesn't work. So I mentioned the connections over here, the things we could do short-term, the things we could do mid-range, and then long-term, and partnering up to do all that with prioritization. So things for us to think about. The final.
Well, you're absolutely. That's one reason I do have a lot of conversation offline with Javier, your executive director. I'm not suggesting this is an MDX issue. I think one of the most pressing issues from my vantage point, selfishly, as port director, is the eye of the needle. And I think Jose Abreu and I both share this. And this is the whole issue of repositioning of I-395 from the MacArthur Bridge to 95. And I keep telling Matty Bauer, the mayor of Miami Beach, I live on South Beach. We're going to have a disaster because that's a dangerous piece of interstate, that I-395. And that's how you're going in and out of that tunnel. And the state FDOT, I know they just don't have money. I've talked about this with the state transportation secretary. But, you know, Abreu and I both feel the same way. We need a game plan as a community, as a state, to deal with the eye of the needle. And, you know, and I'm very concerned as a port director, as a resident of the beach, as a resident of this community, that we're going to have just a horrific problem with tractor-trailer trucks backed up on I-395, you know, and mark my word, because, you know, we're growing as a port. And you can't have tractor-trailers stopped as they are. Think about the disaster right now on a game night. If you go down for a Heat game or you're going to the Adrian Arch Center, oh my gosh, you have traffic backed up everywhere. We got to do something about that. That's why this kind of an organization, because you're all big open thinkers. So that's one idea. I got a lot of ideas for you. You guys are to me. You guys are the innovative people. You guys are the ones that really put together the strategies to move stuff forward. That's why I like this organization. Yes, sir.
Okay, the last one is the Biscayne Bay Aquatic Preserve. You're in the middle of that. Do you have any separate legislation that separates you, where you have to follow what everyone else has to follow when you're doing stuff?
Yep, we follow everything. We follow all federal, all state. I can tell you the highest standard in America, not just in Florida, but in American history for an environmental, for a dredge, was the 2005 Key West Federal Sanctuary Project. That's the highest standard ever reached in terms of attainment by our government. Our project, the Port of Miami Deep Dredge, meets and exceeds those standards. So, you know, and again, I'm a nice guy, so I'm not going to criticize. We have peace in the family. You know, it cost me $1.4 million, but we have peace in the family. But there's $1.4 million going back into our own kitty, okay, because we're going to spend that on, as you'll see in the settlement, we're going to spend that on Biscayne Bay, you know, environmental issues. So you move forward. And, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, but having the sort of the club hanging over there, that club was extremely important to get people to come to the table. And, you know, and I'll say it, I was vilified. Miami Herald vilified me. You know, I'm the one arguing with the lawyers, I want mediation, okay? The other side, they're the good guys, okay? I'm the bad guy. I'm the one wanting mediation. But we got there, okay? So I've learned enough after 32 years, finally keep your mouth shut. We got a signed settlement, so we're moving forward. Cork and bid it. But yes, our project is sound. And I will tell you this is one thing that I will tell you that I have learned. A lot of criticism by a lot of people out there who don't know what they're criticizing. And I'll give you the actual evidence, the proof. Aerials don't lie. People talk about the failures. You read about all of these failures in terms of the dredge. Every single dredge at your port, going back the last 30-plus years, has been a success. Every single environmental remediation has survived. Okay? And I have become a firm believer in sinister plots over the last 6 months living this. I mean, you ever see the movie or read the book, The Pelican Brief? Mm-hmm. I've lived The Pelican Brief. Okay? I could write my own little novel, but yeah. So we're going to do it right. And, and my point to the Audubon Society and others, I too live here. I too breathe the air. I too go into the bay. So it's like you don't have the market cornered on being, if you will, environmental stewards. We all are environmental stewards if you want to be, and certainly at the port we are. So thank you. Thanks for the questions.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all for
Bill.
listening.
And board members, I think this was very timely. Our master plan and our projects that we've been moving along are to support the movement of people and goods efficiently and safe. I think one of our projects that's moving forward quickly, the 874 extension or ramp connector out to the Kendall-Tamiami Airport, that's going to open up a whole brand new piece of property there that's already zoned industrial that will potentially serve the growth at our airport and our seaport. So our master plan is to support both of these entities that generate economic growth in our community. So thank you, Bill, and I look forward to continuing to work with you and your staff.
Thank you for what you all do.
Thank you.
Very good. So
We'll move on to the next item. I need a motion to approve the summary minutes of the February 28th meeting.
move.
Second, hearing no objections, the item passes. The Executive Director's report, Mr.
Yes,
Rodriguez.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point a privilege before I give my report because we have a gentleman here that we invited to the board meeting, and I'm going to let Board Member Solar McKinley introduce him. His name is Pedro Garrido. Pedro, if you can come up, si puede.
At the Operations Committee meeting last week, we gave numerous awards to our road rangers for the great work that they do for us on a daily basis. And Ms. Gutierrez looked at Mr. Garrido's above and beyond his work in giving a lady CPR. Not everybody does that. So she suggested that we bring him to our board meeting and recognize him because he is an example of what we all should be doing, which is going above and beyond our daily routines to make this community and this organization a better organization every day. On behalf of the board, we thank you for having gone above and beyond and being proactive. So we thank you, and we wanted to recognize you publicly and thank you personally on our behalf. So thank you for being here, and thank you for giving the CPR.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report, I'm going to try to be as concise as possible. So let me give you a few project updates since we didn't meet last month, and we have a number of construction out on the roadway, and I want to give everybody an update of where we are. On the 874-04, which is the southern portion of the 874 project, all of the paving is complete southbound. On the northbound, we should be done within the next month, and we're basically putting in the friction course, the last thin layer. Once that's done, we'll put thermoplastic, and we should be out of there, by the beginning of by mid-June. On 874-09, which is the northern portion of 874, this is from Kendall Drive to the Palmetto. The design-build firm is working on noise walls, bridge foundations, both at Sunset Drive and Miller. They're working on drainage and drainage structures, MSC walls, and embankment. That project is approximately 30% complete, and it's on schedule and on budget. On the Central Boulevard project, I bring this one up because during the summer, and for everyone who's listening, During this summer, there will be a major traffic shift. We will be moving the traffic going eastbound to its final configuration onto the new ramps. So when you're coming out of the airport, you'll be on the new ramps so that we can start reconstructing the entrance where you're currently going in and out of the airport. So that project is being...
That starts when?
That will be it's scheduled for June of 2012, okay? That project should be complete by March of 2013. Right now, we're about 50% complete with that project. But we're working with the airport, and we're going to make sure that all of the information is out to the public, not only the people who live here, but the visitors who come here, so that they know the new traffic pattern going in and out of the airport.
My city needs that information. How
Absolutely.
Because that impacts us directly.
Absolutely. And then the final project update that I wanted to give is on the Section 5, what we call 83608. You've seen the erection of Bridge 11, which is that new segmental bridge. That's one of 4 segmental bridges. I'm happy to say that that traffic shift has worked very well. We're getting ready for another major traffic shift that will put eastbound traffic again on the future CD roads, and the eastbound to northbound bridge will start being used. That switch is anticipated again in November, December of this year. We will coordinate all the information with our commuters through the Department of Transportation, who's been a tremendous partner in getting the message out. That project is approximately 50% complete. It's on time and on budget. Anticipation completion is 2015. So we will continue plugging along. But I wanted to give you those project updates. As far as things that have occurred in the last 60 days, March 14th, I participated. It's very timely that Mr. Johnson was here. I participated with the Florida DOT, with Director Abreu, with Isela Yort, on a radio show, Prohibido Callarse, in WQBA. And the topic specifically was I-395, State Road 836, what are we going to do when the port tunnel opens and the port dredging project occurs. And I was very clear to say that it's our responsibility to take care of State Road 836. I-395 is not our jurisdiction, although we have and we will continue to see ways and offer our financial abilities and structure to see if we can get that done through a private public-private partnership, a public-public-private partnership. Those conversations are forthcoming, and we will keep the board abreast of how that moves forward. But the topic was very timely. On March 22nd, MDX again was nominated, and we're a finalist on the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce Top 100 Minority Business Awards. I say that once again we were finalists because we've been finalists. This will be the 3rd year, right? 2nd or 3rd. And it's a tribute to Helen and her group and how we are corporate champions for small business and local businesses, and we're being recognized by the community and by the business community. So congratulations. On that note, in your packets there's a flyer. May 17th is our 9th annual Small Business Workshop. It's going to be at the Miami Airport Convention Center, which is over there by the Merchandise Mart. We have a tremendous speaker, featured speaker, Julia Hubble, and go ahead and Google her, like the flyer says. On March 28th, many of you participated at the Chamber of Commerce Transportation Committee, where there was a luncheon and presentation with Dr. Robert Poole of the Reason Foundation, where he presented his South Florida mobility study. And I was on a panel with Secretary Pago to talk about the impacts to South Florida and how that managed lane network or network of toll lanes would affect us. And I think it was very well turned out, and a lot of you participated. At the Operations Committee, Executive Committee, I think we made a copy available of the report to the board members. Those that didn't receive it, I'll send it electronically. I have it. It's a very good report. I focused on the expressway system, and I focused not necessarily on the cost and the details, but are we doing everything that we can to allow these opportunities to exist on a regional basis in South Florida? And I think we have, and we'll continue to do that. On the 29th of March, we hosted an elected officials and agency information meeting here at the boardroom, and it was for the 83628. Again, very timely with Mr. Johnson's presentation. This is the portion of 836 from 57th Avenue to basically the toll plaza, and all the improvements that we're planning on that There will be phased improvement. We had a lot of turnout. Elected officials from the city of Miami and others showed up and gave us their input, and we will continue to keep them abreast as we move forward. On an operational issue, we've continued to work, Mr. Chair, with the Florida Turnpike Enterprise, OCA, and Tampa Hillsborough on the consolidated or the structuring of a statewide consolidated back office for processing of tolls and in this all-electronic toll environment. We've had a couple of meetings. We met with the consulting team. We gave them all of our issues. But before we got any farther, the four directors agreed to develop a memorandum of understanding that will lay out the game rules, the governance. And what we want with that MOU is that all of the four agencies, including the state, sign off on it before we get too far ahead and then find out that there are limitations to what we want. And that was presented by Florida's Turnpike Enterprise, and we will be drafting something and bringing it through committees here at MDX to get an approval. So it's moving along. Some of you attended the quarterly Team Florida meeting, and these topics were discussed there. It was a very well-attended Team Florida meeting. I think Team Florida is starting to head back in the right direction and start addressing topics and issues that are relevant to the agencies in Florida, and that's a great thing. On April 13th, board members, I briefed Mayor Jimenez on 3 of our future projects, on the southwest extension of 836, on 924 western extension out to the Turnpike, and on the US 1 managed lanes. It was a very good briefing. Terry Garcia and Alfred Lurigados attended with me. He asked a lot of questions, very supportive of what we're doing. And I'm not going to preempt the MPO representative's report, but there is a major development that occurred this last. She's on the phone. She's on the phone. So, but this last April 19th, the MPO unanimously approved the advancement of the 874-10 project from a priority 4 to a priority 2 on the long-range transportation plan. What that affords us is to start working with Florida's Turnpike Enterprise to get the portion of the project that goes over the Turnpike to be let once this year in the fall with their project, so we impact the public only once. So we will be developing a joint participation agreement with Florida's Turnpike. It'll be a design-build project in its entirety, and that joint participation agreement will come before this board. But the point is that we get to advance that project, impact the public once, and hopefully get the project built a lot sooner and open up access to a community that's been landlocked for all practical purposes. And then two announcements. May 16th, we have our budget workshop, and I encourage all the board members and anyone in the audience that wants to attend. It's going to be a good workshop. And finally, board members, I want to introduce John Becker. John Becker is our new program director with HNTB. John comes to us with a wealth of experience in the toll industry, most recently with North Texas Tollway Authority. He's also worked at Florida Turnpike Enterprise. He managed the work program at the Turnpike Enterprise when it was over $5.5 billion in fiscal year 08. I remember those were the good old days at DOT, right? But we're very happy to have John Becker, and you'll be seeing a lot of John at our meetings and our committee meetings. So welcome, John, and that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions to the director? Mr. Wortman?
Actually, a couple of statements. I'll probably need the director's help on a couple of them. A couple of the things, Team Florida Transportation meeting in early April. One of the things was done was they approved a efficiency study of the expressway authorities and the Turnpike, and FDOT is funding it. That's based on Florida legislation, the statute, and very thankfully, Maurice Frey was there on the Florida Transportation Committee, and he added a sentence in there that guarantees that it's supposed to be independent and instead of pushed any one direction. So, which is probably very, very important, a lot more important than it sounds. Okay? The second part, and any study could be going in any direction if it's not independent. Okay, and also at the Florida Transportation Commission Team Florida meeting, the Secretary reintroduced a group of projects major ones, virtually a second Florida Turnpike north-south and 3 east-west, that are over the next 5 to 20 years, that some of them, one of them especially, will have to hook into our system down here, and it's a redirection of the turnpike from being back to where they originally started, major intrastate and interstate transportation, instead of working in and around the suburbs of the major cities. So working in conjunction with, so that adds a different direction to it, which is actually good for us and good for the state in general, because they haven't done a major project since the Homestead extension of the turnpike, down here or anywhere else in the state in years. That was 30 years ago. At the meeting of the Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to add that there was, in addition to the great presentations that were done there, there was also brought forward from Jacobs Engineering a study based on Dade County on sustainable transportation. The most memorable part of it is, in the past 30, 40 years, with all spending 62 to 60% of our surface transportation funds on transit has stagnated at 3%, hasn't grown. And the next 20 years to 2035, if everything goes with the same way, with the same large percentage going that way, they still stay at 3% market share trips per day. And basically netting it out says doing the same old things over and over and expecting a different result, that's the theory of insanity, is basically not working, and we need to look for new, creative, and innovative methods. And part of what we're doing over here are some of the things that should be looked at that way. So that's a study that everyone should at least get a summary of. It's available online. If not the thick, 3-inch thick study, just at least a summary of that.
I'll make it available to the board members,
Okay.
the link.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norman.
Any other questions to the director? Hearing none, we'll move on to the general counsel's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to take this opportunity to update the board on several pending legal matters. At the outset, I want to caution you that I'm not going to get into any of the discussions that we have had in prior shade meetings relating to these particular matters. We have some time frames that have not run till final conclusion, and so those the records of those shade meetings are not yet public records. But what I am going to update you on is in the public court files, and all in all, I think we have very good news on a number of fronts. During the last week of March, the trial court did deny Community Asphalt's motion for reconsideration of the trial judge's ruling in MDX's favor. The plaintiff in that case has 30 days from entry of that order to file a notice of appeal, so we should know by May 1st whether that litigation is finally over or not. Our outside counsel, Kirk DeLeon, has prepared and filed affidavits and motions to recover attorney's fees and costs. We spent quite a bit of time pulling all that together. It comes to about $151,000 in fees and costs that we were able to, under prevailing attorney's fees and costs law, be able to put before the court. So we are hopeful that we will recover that in fairly short order. Should community decide to file an appeal, Mr. DeLeon is prepared to file a cross appeal immediately. We do have two bases. You're all aware that the judge did enter summary judgment, earlier judge, that there was a provision in our contract that did provide for compensation for bituminous. We do feel that that is, as a matter of law, and something that we would like the appellate court to take up if we are forced into an appeal on that. As well as the trial court did make a specific finding that community had failed to meet at least one condition precedent to be entitled to the $3.6 million bonus that they were paid. So should this matter go before the appellate court, that would be a matter that we would bring up, is whether MDX would be entitled to that recovery of that $3.6 million. So hopefully this will all be over fairly shortly, and we should know by May 1st. Once again, I want to publicly thank Kirk DeLeon, our counsel in that matter. He just did a brilliant job handling it. He's very professional, very passionate about his representation of MDX. The trial judge obviously appreciated those qualities in Mr. DeLeon, and I want to again congratulate him for the very good job that he did for us. Two other matters that we have had pending. In March, the Circuit Court once again dismissed the whistleblower complaint filed by former MDX employee Evelyn Morales. The court did afford the complainant 20 days in which to file a complaint that did not have all of the statutory infirmities that the first two had. That 20 days has passed. There has been no third complaint filed, and so we believe that that case is pretty well over, and we're just waiting for final documents to bring that matter to a close. And it's just very unfortunate that the authority and its management has had to endure those baseless allegations, but that case is pretty close to being over. That was handled by our general counsel support firm, Weiss Serrata Helfman. Joe Serrata handled that personally and just did a fine job, and we're very pleased with that. Finally, in late September, you'll remember, or late February, excuse me, you'll remember that we did have a shade meeting where this board did delegate to Executive Director Rodriguez the authority to settle the Superior landscaping case that was set for trial in March, and I'm pleased to tell you that Superior did accept MDX's offer of $150,000. We have exchanged mutual releases. The contractor has been paid the $150,000, and we're just waiting for final documents to be signed by the court to ultimately dismiss that. So we had very good leadership from the executive director in getting that case settled, and also Weiss Serrata Helfman handled that case, and in my opinion they represented us extraordinarily well, and we got very, very good results in both of those cases. And I'll be glad to entertain any questions that doesn't get into our prior shade meeting discussions.
Any questions to our general counsel? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Thank you.
The MPO representatives report. I believe Board Member Gutierrez might be on the phone.
Ms. Gutierrez on the phone, but as I mentioned in my report, the only action pertaining to MDX was the advancement of the 874 project. I will say that we did turn over to the MPO the minutes of the roundtable discussion that we had earlier in the spring. It's in the MPO's hands now to schedule the Transportation Summit to decide how we're going to address the issues here in Miami-Dade County from a priority standpoint. So we'll keep the board updated on what those dates and potential dates would be that the MPO is going to host a Transportation Summit. So I believe that concludes the MPO report.
Are there any questions to the MPO representatives designee? Hearing none, Treasurer's report. Mr. Sanabria, you have your pointer there. Ready to go? Ready to go, baby.
Everything in large font. And I got my laser pointer in case anybody misbehaves, so we're under control. The revenue per year so far is $23,000 above the projected forecast, but it's $763,000. I'm sorry. The revenue forecast so far this year is $23,000 for the month above the forecast, but for the year $763,000 below the year to date. The forecast is $97 million. Any questions on that graph? None? Okay. The total fee revenues month to date was $15,000 above the forecast and $994,000 below a year-to-date forecast. MDX has approximately, and I want you to listen to this carefully, MDX has approximately $10 million in outstanding receivables. That is where the crutch has been. And since that time, since the last 30 days, we have had numerous staff meetings with Pamela, with Javier's leadership, with Steve Andriuk, and of course with Marie. And since that time, the revenues has skyrocketed in terms of receivables. You have that on okay, this is where we were. and this is where we are now. So we have brought in about close to $500,000 actually, Marie?
Yeah,
You just
actually-
ran out of paper there, right?
We ran out.
You guys
Actually,
should meet more often.
For the month of April, which is not represented on that slide, we have collected almost $800,000. So that really is
As a result of those meetings?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to tell you my secrets, but we did good. Anyway,
We had a baseball bat, that's what happened.
we also have some issues that we may have to address on a more serious note in terms of legal, but at this time, that's not part of this discussion. But it's going well.
I don't want to interrupt, but do you have a question regarding this?
go ahead.
Maybe you could answer.
Give me a general idea of how you, that's amazing.
Well, among other things, I think Steve packed his bags and went over there to headquarters of the vendor and locked himself in a room with, were you armed?
Did you bring it back?
And but it really was a matter of teamwork, and everything just fell into place, and it's working very well, and hopefully we'll continue to see that $10 million whittled down.
A lot of the receivables, as I said at the executive committee meeting, a lot of the receivables were our invoices. We invoice the first time, give them 30 days to pay. If they don't, we invoice the second time. But because that's 60 days aged, but what was happening is that because the system didn't have the component of collection, a collection phase that was working, it was just stopping. It was just stopping. So that's where the buildup of the receivables was going in, and what we did was we shook loose the collection piece, and it's starting to, it's opened the spigot, let's say.
Well,
So we're bringing that
well
number
done.
down.
That's awesome.
Okay, the investment income for the year was also above $200,000 above the year-to-date forecast. Okay, on the expense side, we're about $357,000 above the $3.5 million budget. Is that your salary increase?
No, sir.
Okay, so, all right.
No, sir.
But we are $1.5 million below the $30 million year-to-date budget, so we're still well below the scope of the budget. Okay, anything else you want to add to this, Marie? The other ones are just smaller numbers,
No,
but
sir.
if you
I
want to
think-
go ahead and go
No, I
into
think
the
you
interest
stated it
income,
correctly. No, I think you stated correctly.
you're good.
On the expense side,
Yeah.
Mr. Treasurer and board members,
Yes.
the only reason we were up this month by the $357,000
Mhm.
is because it was the direct pass-through of SunPass charges.
That's right.
We had projected 180 million transactions. We're actually tracking higher than that, and since our agreement with SunPass is a per transaction, which we're working on trying to amend, we're actually trending at 193 million. So for this month and the subsequent 4 months, we're going to be adjusting the pass-through charge, and that's where you
Yeah.
saw that number a little bit higher.
Yeah, and if that back office operation consolidated services of all the expressways do ever come to reality, the numbers are going to just go off the scale in terms of the expense versus the revenue side. So we're doing very well. We're very happy. We're content with the way the revenues are starting to come in. And I think we're chipping away at that $10 million. And I want you all to be there, please, on the May 16th workshop. We're going to try to explain thoroughly what the budget is going to look like, piecemeal and focus. So from that point on, you have an understanding, because one of the things that you need to understand at committee level, and I want to emphasize this now, is that we really don't have a lot of money to spare. So when you dream of a viable project at a committee level and want to fund it and make a motion to fund it, I think one of the things you need to ask at that level of the process, Mr. Chairman, is ask the CFO if we do have the money to fund it, because otherwise we're going to look at a rate increase or a CPI increase. And that's one of the things that we need to discuss on the May 16th workshops. That's going to be very important if we want to put into play a lot of these projects that we have. Okay?
Any questions for the treasurer? Great job, great job, great job. We'll skip over the committee reports and we'll go into the consent agenda. Is there a motion to
Move
approve
it.
the consent agenda?
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. Hearing no objections, the item passes. Regular agenda item 9A.
There we go.
9A.
Item 9A is for MDX contract 0913. This is revenue collection services to extend the existing contract with Faneuil for an additional 24 months. And this contract extension is for $4.9 million. And if you have any questions on this, and you may want to discuss it in conjunction with item B as well, although we will need separate motions because that one is also to extend Faneuil's contract for 24 months for the support center services. And so those are both items that Mr. Andrea can speak to.
Those were discussed thoroughly at the Operations Committee. We had a good presentation, and I'm willing to move the item forward if anybody
Second.
has any additional questions. We were all there, except you.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any objections? Hearing none, item passes. Item B.
Move it.
And item, Mr. Wortman, do you have a question?
I was going to second, or but
Okay.
it's already taken.
Third.
Questions, comments? Hearing no objections, item 9B passes. 9C.
9C is for the CEI services for system-wide implementation of dynamic message signs. This was endorsed by the Operations Committee on April 17th, and I think in Mr. Lurigatos' absence, if you have any questions for the Executive Director, he can address those.
Move it.
This item actually went through procurement, and there is a selection of one of the firms.
Where are these messages going to be at?
Dynamic message is going to be system-wide. They're going to be those LED signs.
LED signs.
They're going to visual. They're going to be sending messages.
But they're going to be in color.
You know, full color. They're going to be on our on our gantry systems, east of 57th Avenue on 112 and 836. On the rest of the system will be on the sides. But it's going to convey the messages of traffic and traffic conditions, alternate routes, and so on and so forth.
They're similar to the amber signs that
Pretty
FDOT
much.
has, but I think ours is going
But
to
in
be full color.
Full color LED. You got it.
Any questions from the board, comments?
May I
Here?
just put on the record that it's the
Yes.
selection of AECON Technical Services for staff to go ahead and negotiate a contract with them? So we didn't
Yep.
say who the vendor was on the record.
Right, so it's a selection of AECOM, who were the highest ranked firm in the procurement.
Move it.
Motion to the second. Any comments? Questions? Hearing no objections, item passes. Item D, 9D, the Executive Director's performance.
Move it.
Move it. Second.
Any comments? No questions, hearing no objections, item passes. The procurement report, is anybody going to give that?
Actually, we have two additional items in this
Okay.
package. We have two contracts. The addition.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, ENF, sorry, I had the green
Mr.
packet.
Chair, both of these are extension of contracts for financial services. Item E is for PIFIA services. This was an extension for the Jeffrey Parker and Deloitte Canada contracts, and they were both endorsed by the Budget and Finance Committee on March 12th.
Move it.
Motion to the second, are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, the item passes. Item 9F.
Item F is for an renewal of First Southwest Company's contract for municipal financial and swap services. And again, this was endorsed by the Budget and Finance Committee on March 12th.
Move it.
Motion to the second, any objections, comments? Hearing none, item
There's a
passes.
minority component in that, minority business component? Local business component?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I
Small business.
Item, are you okay with that, with the answer? Item passes, any informational items?
No, sir. I covered it in my report.
I have no comments. Is there any-
I do have
Yeah,
one
go ahead.
item that I'd like to inform the board of, and I've had this conversation with the chair. Everyone knows my participation at IBTTA, and I serve on the board of directors, and I've taken the next step, and I've put my name in for a nomination for second vice president of the board, and we'll see how it plays out. But I am very fortunate that this board has supported me and supported the organization and our role in the organization. And if I'm fortunate enough to be selected, I'd be representing the MDX and the IBTT as well as
And you'd
I
be
can.
president when? 2015?
2015.
Very cool. Congratulations. That's great.
We'll see.
It's a big
We'll see
accomplishment.
how it goes. We'll see.
Congratulations, Javi.
Any comments from the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Adjourn. Second.